welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, Darren, we've been out in this field for a little while and we're finding some problems out here. There are a lot of stalks that looked like they were great this summer, super thick and everything, but some other ones that looked horrible. We want to explain the reason why and talk to you about scouting in your fields at this time of the year.
Well, one thing that didn't impact this year's crop but could impact next year's crop is potential herbicide carryover. When you have a drought year and you don't get normal weather and normal rainfall, there is a potential with certain herbicides. We'll tell you which ones.
You're really going to like our Weed of the Week or dislike it because it's probably the worst weed problem in the United States today. But before we get to that, here's our Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty Herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty Herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
Brian, you know, one thing I saw a lot of this fall is guys taking out old fence lines.
Yep.
Why are they taking out the fences?
Okay, well, like just about right next to us here, there's an old fence line. It's around a grove, and here we've got our field. Let's face it, Darren, we're never going to have livestock out in this field anymore. We don't have livestock on our farm, so why do we need the fences here at all? That's the reason why they were there, is so the cows didn't get into the trees.
Well, if the fence was in good shape, there's nothing wrong with it. It's when the fence starts to decline in condition that, hey, you either need to repair it or you need to take it out. And why spend a whole bunch of money putting in new fence when there's no purpose for it? So in that case, many guys just wait. Once the fence is in poor repair, they'll pull it back out.
Well, you know, the old saying is good fences make good neighbors. And on the farm, I think that one of the reasons why some guys like to put fences up is just to make sure their stuff was separate from the neighbors. But anymore, we find farmers are working together so well, and with all this GPS stuff and auto steer and everything, you can drive right on your side of your property line, whether you have a fence there or not. It's not as big a deal as it used to be.
Well, I don't know. I guess most guys don't have to farm next to you, Brian, so they aren't too worried about having a fence up
anymore.
anymore.
I hate having that fence out there, though, because it's just an area that's dead. I mean, or, you know, some area where it's not productive, I mean to say, and we now have to control weeds there. Why do that? Why not get some production, get some dollars out of that area, especially when it's just between fields?
Well, I'm trying to think of a positive reason for having a fence if you don't have livestock, and I really can't come up with one. If you've got deer in your area, they'll just jump over the fence anyway, so it's not like it's going to hold deer back. Unless it's a great big tall fence, then they'll just go around the fence and still get to where they want to get to. So it isn't going to change much that way. And with fences, you know, it is something that you could catch some equipment on, and many guys now are running larger equipment, especially as they're trying to get younger people or newer people on the farm going with some big equipment. Occasionally you'll see one of those guys just barely catch that barbed wire fence, and all of a sudden barbed wire is wrapped all over everything, and it's not a whole lot of fun to try and take that off.
Well, once again, now that most farmers do not have livestock on the farm, they are taking the fences out. It just means that much less maintenance for them and that many more acres they have that can now be productive.
Well, one other thing that you can clean up by taking out a fence line is the weeds that grow there. It could be a place where our Weed of the Week could get a start. Can you identify this week's weed?
Back in 1966, Advanced Drainage Systems, Inc. was the first company to start manufacturing plastic agricultural drainage pipe in the United States. And today, ADS continues our leadership with superior pipe production and service capabilities. Our roots are firmly entrenched in the agriculture industry, and we're committed to helping farmers grow their business. With 54 manufacturing plants and 24 distribution yards throughout the world, you can count on ADS and our green striped pipe to be there when you need us. Advanced Drainage Systems, the green striped pipe you can count on.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
With Roundup Ready Plus weed management solutions, the pluses really add up. You can count on expert advice, herbicide recommendations, plus weed control incentives for your higher yielding seeds and advanced traits. With Roundup Ready Plus and Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield soybeans, you have the solutions you need to effectively subtract your weed problems. And that adds up to yield. For more details, visit RoundupReadyPlus.com.
You can't fill a barrel any fuller than its lowest stave, and your crops can't do any better than the nutrient that's in shortest supply. Your yield potential is only as good as the weakest nutrient in your fertilizer program. Give your crops more than just NPK. Prescription apply all the micronutrients your crop needs, each one customized for your crop's potential. MicroLink, linking yield to potential.
For lower costs and higher production, see your Mandaco dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport and easy use. 12 to 62 foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 by 3/8 inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers. Improved soil to seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss. Eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Okay, so Darren and I walked into this cornfield and we were looking at all these stalks that are just fantastic. They're still, even a month or two after harvest here, they're nice and thick and they're solid. I mean, that was great during the season. Obviously, this could support a really big ear, no problem.
Well, the problem is, Brian, is all of our stalks aren't perfectly even. And when we talk about crop production, if you want to maximize your production on your farm, you've got to give every plant an equal opportunity to succeed. And when you have plants that pop up a couple of days later than the one next to them, all of a sudden there's a problem because the other plants are a little bigger and they can't catch as much sunlight, they can't draw in as much food because their root system isn't as big as their neighbor, and all of a sudden you've got a plant that maybe it'll produce a half ear, maybe it won't even produce an ear if it's a little bit smaller.
Okay, so basically we go along and we've got nice stalk, nice.
And even spacing.
Yep, and even spacing, a thin stalk, but even spacing. Then we're missing a plant, and I don't see that there was any plant here at all, so that's probably a seed that didn't germinate, and then we've got some more nice stalks as we go along. So is it a major problem out here? Probably not, but the point is, if we could have had this stalk thick, and if there would have been a nice thick stalk here as well, I'm sure we could have had 15, 20, maybe 30 bushels more yield.
Well, the question is, why did we have a skip? And then why did we have one that got planted too deep? Okay, and when you dig these plants up, this is the good thing with corn. You can dig up plants today on your farm and find out how your planting depth was back in April. You can find it right here. When you dig that root up, you can find right where the seed was and see for yourself. Did you have it at an even depth? Now, I'm going to guess, Brian, the plants, if we dug them all up right next to you there, they're going to be all nice and even. Oh, sure, break it off.
Yep.
Break it off.
Yeah, I just broke it off.
So there goes our prop. There goes our nice prop, Brian. But I would guess if you had all these ones where the stalk diameter is the same and the spacing is even, you're going to do great. You're going to say, wow, we were at 2 inches deep, 2 inches deep, 2 inches deep all the way along, and all of a sudden we're at 3 inches deep. And for whatever reason, maybe there was a stalk here laying across the road and we bounced up over it, and then all of a sudden we went deep when we got off that stalk. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but we had something happen here with our planter that screwed things up for us for the whole rest of the year.
And then when you ask about, well, why is there no plant right here? Let's keep in mind that with seed corn, the germination is usually 95%. So that means only 95 out of 100 plants are going to be living. So you're going to have 5 out of every 100. That actually is quite a few where they're just not going to be there. They're going to be missing.
Well, 95% sounds great on a term paper, but it doesn't really look that great in your field. And that's one of the challenges with our industry. You know, you look at insect control too. Let's just say that maybe it was a bug. Maybe there was a seed there, but we lost it to a seed corn maggot, or we lost it to a wireworm or something like that. And our insecticides and herbicides are not perfect out in the field. They're oftentimes 90 to 100% control, but not 100. 90 to 99, I should say, not 100.
So the reason why we're talking about this today is as we scout fields at this time of the year, obviously we can't figure out every reason as to why did we have this thin stalk here, why did we have the missing plant there. What we're trying to do is hopefully motivate you to scout your fields more often.
It was interesting. I was talking to Harold Reitz, who's retired now, but he used to do a little bit of work with Herman Warsaw way back in the 70s, early 80s.
Herman Warsaw was the first guy that ever raised 300 bushel corn in the United States.
Harold was saying the first time he went out to meet Herman, he went to his house and he met Herman's wife, and he said, well, where's Herman at? And she said, well, you're not going to find him here. He's always out in a cornfield somewhere trying to learn something that's going to make more yield. And that's sure enough where he was. He went out to one of the cornfields and there was Herman out walking around trying to figure out how he could improve things.
Yep, and the thing is, if we were out here scouting in this spot, all through the season, we would know. We'd have the answer as to what happened here and why this stalk is thin. Maybe it came up a few days later. I can't tell you for sure right now. Why was this plant missing? Was it a bug? Was it just poor germination? Maybe it was a problem with our planter. We don't know for sure right now because a lot of the evidence is going to be missing today, whatever it's been, 7-8 months after we planted the seed.
And when you talk about the scouting, Brian, it's not just today, it's all throughout the season. Because let's take this field, for example. There are a couple things that I do know that happened here. One, we had some surface crusting. We had a real hard packing rain shortly after we planted, and we had some crusting issues out there. The other thing that came along with that rain, when we got on some hillsides, we had a little bit of washing, and where was that soil loosest? Well, right in that seed furrow, and we had some of our seed furrows wash out. That all impacted this year's crop.
Let's come back to that crusting, because I was out in this particular field scouting several times, and I knew it wasn't going to be perfect. But the point was, it was a month after planting, and there were still some seeds that were just emerging, and it was a question of, do we replant or not? There were a lot of other farmers in our area that replanted, and I think we ended up making the right call. It was late enough, we decided, nope, we're gonna let it go. I think we've got at least an 85–90% stand, and it turned out actually pretty good for us. We had one of the best yields on our entire farm on this particular field. Could it have been better if we had had a better stand? Yes, but we did have that hard packing rain, and I don't think we would have had better yield by replanting.
Well, we certainly wouldn't have this year because we didn't get any more rain, so it would have been a disaster. So the important thing is just get out in your fields and look around. I know a lot of people say, wow, I got so much going on, I don't have time to. Think about what jobs are going to pay you the most. And a job like this, finding out what a problem is, like let's say the small stalk issue. We figure out, hey, you know what? There's an issue with our planter. Well, guess what? If we don't figure that out, next year we're going to make that same mistake and the same mistake after that and the year after that and the year after that. And all of a sudden we're 10 years into this thing. We've made a mistake that cost us 20 bushels every year all the way through. Well, that's a whole crop over a 10-year time period. Well, what if you had one more whole crop with no expenses, just all income? I mean, it'd just make a world of difference on your farm.
Hey, one last thing I was going to mention, these nice thick stalks that we've got in here. We've had a major problem with lodging on our farm when we've tried to go to higher populations in previous years. And so we've really tried to ramp up the amount of potassium we're using, and it's finally starting to show up in the stalks. The stalks were much better this year. I think we've really turned the corner, and we're now able to push to that next yield level, but we couldn't do that if we didn't have the support of our stalks.
But again, here's something where we made a change to the fertility program. If you don't scout your fields and pay attention to what's going on out there, I don't remember what last year's stalks look like now, and you say, well, are these better or worse than last year? Well, I don't know, they look pretty good. Well, you got to compare that. You compare it during the year, you compare it year on year and field to field to know if what you're doing is making a difference.
Well, another thing you need to make a difference with on your farm is our weed of the week. It's one of the worst ones in the country. Can you identify this week's weed?
Advanced Farming Systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. Our precision farming solution is less complex and built right into our equipment. Factory integrated with open architecture, AFS works with all of your implements, no matter what color they are. And our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling 24/7, 365. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
Hey Brian, it's Farm Guy.
What brings you to our farm?
I watch Ag PhD every week and know that you guys do a lot of field testing.
We test a lot of products here, and when something works, we use it on our farm.
Oh, like agriculture liquid fertilizers. You guys started talking about ProGerminator and SureK on the show a few years ago.
But I was skeptical.
You're always skeptical.
Should Brian be skeptical of agro-liquid fertilizers? Find out at www.farmguytv.com.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, Save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Everything is better to the power of Nutrisphere N. Proven to shield against leaching, volatilization, and denitrification, Nutrisphere N Nitrogen Fertilizer Manager helps you maximize the efficiency of your nitrogen applications. In fact, research shows that in 184 corn trials, Nutrisphere N increases yields by an average of 13.2 bushels per acre. Do the math for yourself. Contact your local fertilizer dealer today and take your operation to the power of Nutrisphere N.
Coming out of the 2012 drought, one of the most popular questions we're getting right now is, how about herbicide carryover? Should I be real concerned about this going into next year?
You know, that's a good question, Brian, and it really depends on where you're at, because it's not, oh, okay, are you in Arkansas or are you in North Dakota? No, it's what county in Arkansas are you in? What rain did you have in your area? And 2 miles down the road, was it totally different? Because for a lot of guys, yeah, oh yeah, boy, you go 5 miles down the road and they had, you know, this extra rain that we didn't get, and they had all this extra plant growth.
Yep, but rain isn't the only factor. So obviously, rain is very important. We need rain to help break down some of these herbicides, but you know, rain can push herbicides down deep into the soil to some degree, but a lot of the herbicides, they're not going to move that much in the soil. How they're going to break down is bacteria. And if there are no bacteria living because it's so ridiculously dry, that's the reason why you have the carryover problem. So just keep in mind, bacteria are the #1 creator of herbicide breakdown.
All right, well, you talk about drought and its impact on bacteria. Let's also talk about soil pH. That's just a huge one. When you've got a pH that's way out of whack, and let me tell you, I would say at least 90% of farmers across the country probably fight this. There's a small area in my field that's high pH, or there's a small area in my field that's low pH, or all the ground in our area is high pH or low pH. If you're way off the base, if you're below 6 on pH, if you're above 7.5 on pH, you're starting to get to those extremes where certain types of soil microbes are going to have a tough time surviving, and certain pesticides are going to be more likely to carry over in your ground.
The product definitely makes a difference. For example, if you're using atrazine, you know you have way more carryover than if you're using Buctril. Buctril doesn't even really have any soil residual. But then in addition to the product, it's the rate that you're using. So if you're using a low enough rate, we're probably not all that concerned about it. If you're using a high rate, it's a much bigger deal. One of the other big factors I always look at is how much of the herbicide actually landed on the ground and how much landed on weeds and crop. So for example, if you had solid seeded soybeans and you had solid weeds out there, there's probably not a lot that's going to hit the ground anyway, so you don't have nearly as much risk for carryover.
Well, like for example, this year we had lamb's quarters. We had them just super thick already starting in late March and early April.
We didn't.
Oh, everywhere, Brian. They were all over the country, and guys would go out and spray those patches. I'm not too worried about carryover because they were so thick. I don't think we even killed all the lamb's quarters. We couldn't get through that canopy. So if you're in those situations, it's less of a concern.
All right, let's talk specifically about products in corn, soybeans, and wheat. Which ones are we most concerned about? Let's start with corn. In other words, products you can use in corn, and if you're going to rotate to some other crop.
All right, I'm thinking about atrazine. I'm also thinking about that HPPD family with Callisto, Lotus, Impact. In soybeans, I look at things like Pursuit and Raptor are certainly high on my list. Flex Star is also on my list, especially where we farm.
Anything that contains classic. So there are some of these products like Enlight and Envive, and there are a bunch of combinations that have classic in there. Probably not a big deal in a lot of cases, but this year it could be, especially in high pH ground.
In wheat, I look at Husky. That's got some potential carryover to certain crops, you know, especially if you get into peas, edible beans, lentils, those kind of things. If you're in a rotation that has some of those things in it, you definitely have to be concerned if you didn't get any rain this year.
Moisture, heat, time, and pH. Those are probably the biggest factors. And obviously moisture we didn't have. We had plenty of heat though. And as far as time, it seems like there's time for breakdown because planting occurred early, spraying occurred early. It's been dry and warm into the fall. There are a lot of these factors that really aren't that bad, but and then obviously the pH thing varies a lot in your fields. So when you're thinking about your fields, we also want you to be thinking about the whole field, not just most of the field, because I very often ask farmers, well, what's your soil pH? Oh, it's around 7. No, it's not. Okay, there are areas in your field I'll guarantee you are low areas in your field I'll guarantee you are high. Those are the real problem areas that we're worried about.
Now when we talk about products, again, we kind of went through a quick list here, but certainly pay attention to your local state university. Most of the universities now are trying to make guys aware of the products being used in their state, maybe in some different crops that we aren't talking about here. So do take a look at lists to see which products you've used. Talk with your local agronomist, because your local weather was different and your local soils are certainly different than here.
Well, some of those products you mentioned, Darren, hopefully are going to control our weed of the week. We're going to need something that's going to. We'll talk about it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Mandaco.
For lower costs and higher production, Mandaco leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. See your Mandaco dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call 877-915-8790.
Our weed of the week is Brian's favorite weed. It's Palmer Pigweed.
My favorite.
It is your favorite, Brian. Brian thinks Palmer Pigweed is actually water hemp in disguise. Brian, it's a little bit different.
Well, the reason why I think it's the same is simply because they both are hairless. And so I've always referred to hairless pigweed as water hemp. I don't think Palmer Pigweed exists.
Well, I think it is a little bit different weed. And the problem with Palmer Pigweed is it typically grows in the south, but now it has spread north. And we're seeing Palmer Pigweed as far north as Michigan. So we've got Palmer Pigweed that's moved up, whether it be with hay or with livestock or with migratory birds. I don't care how it happened. The problem is it has spread north.
Okay, well, whether it's Palmer Pigweed or water hemp, I don't care what kind of smooth pigweed you have. We know it's going to have lots of seeds on it, maybe 1 million or more seeds per plant. We know it's probably going to be Roundup resistant or at least Roundup tolerant, and maybe even ALS resistant or tolerant.
Well,
so we've got that for a problem.
Why is it?
And then one last thing, Darren, it can grow 3 to 4 inches a day. It's a crazy weed.
It all depends on weather conditions, but the reason why, a lot of people say, well, why is it getting tolerant to Roundup or resistant to Roundup so fast? The reason why is there's male plants and there's female plants, and there's a lot of crossing that goes on. So all of a sudden, you know, when there's millions of different crosses happening out in your field, one of them's certain to be resistant, and then that plant puts on 1 million seeds, and pretty soon next year, one plant turns into 1 million plants.
Yep, so what we saw down south is it'd be 1 year, oh, there are a few plants out here, no big deal. The next year, you could see quite a few plants starting to get to be a problem.
One plant would run through the combine.
And then by year 3, it's a disaster.
Yeah, if you just get a plant here or there, it runs through the combine. Now you've got a streak in your field, and boom, it just explodes.
Okay, how are we going to stop this thing?
Well, you can't get Palmer Pigweed with a post-emerge application. I don't care if it's with Liberty or any single herbicide.
You can control it with a post product, but
just
not for long.
Because it keeps coming up all year. So you have to start out with pre-emerge products. Now when we're further south in the United States, you have to get out there very early with a burn down that has some residual and hold it down already in February and March in some areas.
Okay, let's start with soybeans because that's where we have the most problem with Palmer Pigweed. It's really tough here, and I'll tell you, in our own operation, we're controlling water hemp, same thing basically in terms of control as Palmer Pigweed. I'm using 3 pre-emerge herbicides that have activity on it, no joke.
Well, you're not worried about resistant weeds, are you?
Well, it's not that expensive. You go out there with Prowl or Treflan or Sonalan, okay, one of those 3, and then you put that together with Authority MTZ, so that's Authority plus Sencor. So I've got 3 different modes of action, 3 things that all have activity on Palmer Pigweed, and I'm going to have really good control.
That's nice. Then you plant Liberty Link soybeans, and when you've got those Liberty Link soybeans, you can now spray Liberty in crop. The challenge with Liberty has been they're a little tight on supply because their growth has just been tremendous. So many guys are going to Liberty Link crops. So you want to spray pretty early. You don't want to wait till the weeds are big. You want to spray them when they're just really pretty small, maybe 2 to 4 inches.
Okay, otherwise, if you don't have Liberty beans, FlexStar would be your next best option. I don't want to use my FlexStar Pre in a combination like Preflex. I want to save it till post-emerge. Then I also have Cobra as a rescue option as well. In corn, this is much easier. Use a good Pre. There are several out there. I like Balance Flex, probably the best. Verdict is decent as well. Status is the best thing post-emerge.
Callisto, Lotus, and Impact still work on our farm, but there are areas of the country that Palmer Pigweed's resistant to them too.
Well, once again, Palmer Pigweed is tough. Just make sure you're using a good pre-emerge products, more than one product, and then use something good post-emerge and spray early. This weed grows and it grows fast.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
Advanced Farming Systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. AFS is less complex and built right into our equipment, and our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
Just exactly how much microbial activity is there in the soil? In In today's Iron Talk, we'll discuss how that's going to impact some of your fall operations this year. In our area, there's been a lot of fertilizer put on in the fall, which is a normal practice. Farmers like to put on nitrogen late in the fall, as soon as the soil temperatures are getting cold and the temperatures are going down. But if your temperatures are still above freezing in the soil, you're still going to have microbial activity. This is one thing that we don't often think about because we hear rules like, oh, if it's under 50 degrees, we're in good shape. There's hardly going to be any soil microbial activity, but there's still some, and they're going to break down that nitrogen and convert it into nitrate. So we have to be aware of that and use nitrogen stabilizers as much as possible. The other things that we think about in the fall are fall herbicide applications. With no-till, with Roundup-resistant weeds, we've got a lot of guys putting on herbicides in the fall now to try and control especially winter annual weeds, but also to get a jump on doing things in the spring. When you're putting on herbicides, you're still going to get a little bit of breakdown in the soil if your temperatures are warm, so you want to wait as long as possible before doing that as well. And finally, we get the question on residue breakdown, and when you have a nice warm fall like we had last year, and for the most part like we had this year too, you get a lot more residue breakdown going into the fall because that microbial activity is still working for you. So think about that. If in your area you're still getting warm temperatures, you're going to have microbial breakdown of your fertilizer, you're going to have microbial breakdown of your herbicides, and also of your organic matter out in the field. So think about all those things as you plan for next spring and what you're going to do in your field operations. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Harvest season will soon be over, but don't put away your equipment until you bring it into Titan Machinery, your Case IH dealer. Take advantage of our Uptime Maintenance program. Uptime is Titan's preventative maintenance service designed to eliminate costly downtime during the short working season. Our technicians average more than 10 years of experience and use a comprehensive checklist to find problems before they slow you down. Call Titan Machinery today to schedule your Uptime service so you can spend the winter worry-free. Titan Machinery and Case IH. Better solutions.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
Back in 1966, Advanced Drainage Systems, Inc. was the first company to start manufacturing plastic agricultural drainage pipe in the United States. And today, ADS continues our leadership with superior pipe production and service capabilities. Our roots are firmly entrenched in the agriculture industry, and we're committed to helping farmers grow their business. With 54 manufacturing plants and 24 distribution yards throughout the world, you can count on ADS and our green striped pipe to be there when you need us. Advanced Drainage Systems, the green striped pipe you can count on.
Advanced Farming Systems from Case IH helps producers be ready. Our precision farming solution is less complex and built right into our equipment. Factory integrated with open architecture, AFS works with all of your implements, no matter what color they are. And our team of dedicated specialists are here to keep you rolling 24/7, 365. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready?
I'm ready. Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
Introducing the all-new Backsaver Swing Hopper Auger Mover. Backsavers have interchangeable parts which allows you easy access to move or swing your augers to fit your harvesting needs. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Iron Talk, Farm Basics, and a whole lot more. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
75 to 95% of soil-applied phosphorus may be tied up and made unavailable to plants. Farmers use organic proteins and other fertilizer innovations to ensure their crops are fed properly. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.